can't hold me back, you can't hold me down. Put me in the game, gotta get it right now. Whoa, on me, you know I'm the one and only. All them other ones is phony. Moving like a drum, I'm on beat. Whoa, yeah, you could put the pressure on me. I ain't never getting coffee. Straight top where I'm gon' be. I got no time to debate. I put my reps in like every day. I keep it moving, I don't like the way. I just keep adding these wins to the play. I ain't worried about a setback. With a loss, I'ma get back. Going up on a jetpack. All the haters, you can sit back.
Welcome in, everybody, to our last division of our 2023 team previews. I'm Mike LaPlant, and I'm welcomed here by Jordan. How's it going, man?
Doing great, man.
I'm doing great myself. I'm ready to talk about the Los Angeles Rams, not too long ago, Super Bowl champs. But before we jump into it, make sure you like and subscribe the video. If you want to, listen to us on a daily, get that bell rung, and not in a bad way, but ring that bell on YouTube, and that way you get the notifications when we come online or whenever our videos come up. And then if you want to become an all-access member, get all access to our award-winning content, our rankings, our newly touted draft sheet that just came out for fantasy football. Make sure you go to our fantasy6pack.net/plans. Use F6P NFL to get a 15% off discount to get signed up there. And then the best part about this, in my opinion, is getting access to us in our Discord chat. All right, you can talk to Joe, top 5 fantasy pro ranker. You can talk to me and Jordan there. You can get custom questions asked, and then you'll get your custom answers because, unless you hit us up on Twitter, you're not getting that anywhere else. And then sometimes we're just too busy for Twitter. So if you want our attention all the time, you want to use that promo code and get signed up at fantasy6pack.net/plans. But let's hop right into our Los Angeles Rams preview here. And, let's get it started off with this quarterback room. We got Matthew Stafford, Stetson Bennett, and then Brett Rippon, longtime, journeyman. Stetson Bennett, obviously being the rookie from Georgia, national champs last year.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs, that's right. Kirby's definitely creating a culture down there, and I like it. But back to the Rams. Matthew Stafford coming off injury-riddled season last year. He's in his mid-30s. I believe he's 33. So, it's not like he's going to get any healthier, outside of the offseason. So I'm kind of curious, coming off that rough year, how are we feeling about Stafford, being somewhat healthy now?
Being healthy, sure. I am not feeling great about it for fantasy, though. I especially where he's going in drafts right now. There's a lot of other quarterbacks going in that same range that I'd prefer. You look back 2 years ago, and it kind of gets masked because they got hot at the end and went on to win the Super Bowl. But a lot of people don't realize, Matt Stafford led the league in interceptions 2 years ago and then came out last year and had a really rough year. So, while he turned it around the year before, it definitely wasn't all great that first year in Los Angeles either. So, I think some of the signs are kind of on the wall. You kind of saw him start to fade a little bit in Detroit, which is a bummer. Like I said, as a Georgia Bulldogs fan, love Stafford, man. But at this point in his career where he's going, I just think it's a little bit too risky. I'm pretty much out on him at this point. Stetson Bennett, I think if he had to come in and play a few games, he could hold the offense down to where they wouldn't fall apart. Don't know that it would translate to a lot of fantasy points. But then again, John McVay is one of those coaches kind of like Kyle Shanahan that could kind of make something out of nothing, really. But as far as Stafford goes, redraft leagues, maybe. But as far as it goes right now, I don't have him in any rosters. I don't really see that changing with where he's going.
For the most part, I agree with you. The only place I really have him and want to have him is in best ball. Mm-hmm. It's just because you don't have to choose when you want to play him. Right. Mm-hmm. Just real quick here. Do you think, being a Dogs fan, Stetson Bennett, is he just a career backup in the league, or is he a possible starter somewhere, like maybe for the Rams in the future?
I would be surprised if he turns into a starter, but I think he could kind of be who's a good comp, kind of like in that Gardner Minshew conversation, Jacoby Brissett best backup in the league. I think he could eventually maybe develop into one of those guys.
Taylor Heineke.
I think he could be. Yeah, that's a good comp, a little bit of a better Taylor Heineke. Stetson Bennett. He's a little bit of a sneaky runner as well too. I don't think people realize that he's a little bit more athletic. So if he got on and got the starting job at all, I think that he'd be able to have a rushing floor that made him fantasy relevant. But as far as long-term outlook, I don't think that he's anything in
Fair
terms
point.
of long-term starter now.
That's a fair point. But I mean, he could definitely see some starting games here in his future. But let's move on to the meat of this offense, and that's the running backs. Cam Akers, I mean, we know how he finished last year down that stretch, just killing it. After, of course, Darrell Henderson got cut. So, knowing that we just got the news not too long ago, Sony Michel did get signed here again. He's got a little bit of history with McVay. How are we feeling about Cam Akers being able to put together a full season that looked like the last 6 weeks of last year with Michelle there, or is that not in the realm of possibilities?
So the best thing that I feel like I can say about Akers is that like the depth chart behind him is not great. So I think he's going to have a really long leash. Going clear back to when he came out of the draft, I wasn't super high on Akers. I think I had him as like the RB5 or 6 in the class that year. And then comes in a great story, tears his Achilles, comes back in and is able to play in the playoffs that year. Like that's pretty awesome. But in terms of fantasy goes, I'm out here. Like Cooper Kupp is like I think one of the few guys on this team I think I really want to invest heavily in fantasy. Like if I get Akers, if he slides to like round 6, 7, 8, then maybe. But he's definitely not a guy I'm reaching up high to go grab. Zach Evans, kind of the rookie that came in here, he's a guy that I think keep a little bit of an eye on. I don't know if it's too hot takey yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, like Zach Evans is getting 35% of the work to where it's like closer to a timeshare.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the clear backups are Kyron Williams and Zach Evans here. It's obvious, barring any injuries to Cam Akers or Sony Michel, which we know is possible. Are either of those two even worth rostering this year?
Yeah, I do. I think Evans is. I like to stay in college, and just the fact that I'm not a huge Cam Akers believer. This could be the year where I finally look wrong on that, but he's another guy that just has had some flashes where he looks good, but it hasn't been put together for a consistent stretch of playing time. So I'll go Evans here as the backup. I do think that he could. He's not going to be flexible, but I think he's a guy flexible. But I think he's a guy that if Akers ever did go down at that point, then he would be a guy that's in that flex conversation.
Getting thrown into the workload. All right, so this was the meat of the offense. Let's go to the dessert. The one everybody wants to talk about, the wide receivers, and let's talk about Cooper Kupp. Obviously, before the injury last year, he was the wide receiver one ahead of Jefferson. Broke the I believe it was the record for best wide receiver season ever that year. I mean, what are the expectations for him this year, knowing that you got Stafford healthy and Cooper Kupp is healthy again?
I mean, he's kind of like that prime example of a receiver can be a great fantasy asset and the quarterback isn't. I think that's very relevant here. I think Cooper Kupp is pretty much quarterback proof if he's healthy. Like last year, before he went down, had 75 catches, still led the team in only 9 games, had 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, he was on pace for 1,500 yards and double-digit scores. As long as he's healthy, I don't see any reason he's not kind of in that same neighborhood. Maybe not 1,500 yards, but 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. I think that's like a pretty safe floor to expect from him.
Probably 100.
And Bennett just comes in and is throwing him passes.
Probably like 150 plus targets, just guaranteed. Because looking at the guys behind him, we got Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek, Tutu Atwell. They drafted Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
They got Demarcus Robinson, and then they got Lance McCutcheon. So, I mean, out of these guys, let's be honest, Van Jefferson's kind of the guy you're going to be targeting, but he has been left for dead as of recently because they signed Robert Woods last year. But as you can see, he's no longer on the team. I mean, not Robert Woods. My bad. Allen Robinson. Yeah. Basically the same thing, but yeah. But, now that Allen Robinson is no longer here, do we like Van Jefferson to step up into that wide receiver 2 role and produce in this offense, or is it just Cooper Kupp?
In a best ball league, yes. I don't want to have to try and pick which weeks it's going to be, though, because he's going to be the guy that's going to be like 5 to 8 catches. I think he's going to be like 3 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown, and then 1 catch for 13 yards. So in a best ball league, absolutely. He's going late in leagues. So if you have the room on the bench, he's not a bad bet. Just if Cooper Kupp does go down at that point, then they're going to need somebody to step up. It just by pure like math, like he's a body that's healthy. He's there. He's going to get targets. So I like him more in best ball than redraft, but he is a guy that I think is like one of the last few guys he's worth throwing on your bench just because another guy, he's shown flashes there. If the Rams offense can get even close to like what it was 2 years ago, then there's going to be enough room for multiple people to be fantasy relevant in this offense. So yeah, I think he's worth a stash for that, but especially in your best ball leagues where you don't have to try and pick and choose what weeks he's going to go off.
And then we got the group of guys behind him: Skronik,
Yeah.
Tutu Atwell, Nakua, Demarcus Robinson. Just a bunch of guys here. I mean, are you monitoring any of these guys behind Jefferson and Kupp?
I like Puka Nakua. He was a guy coming out of the draft I liked a little bit as like a late round guy. So like he went about where I expected he would get drafted. Not a guy that you're wanting to use in like your 12-team redraft league, but I think he's a guy that 16-teamers and deeper, you need to have him on your watch list and make sure he's not undrafted sitting out there on waivers. He's worth throwing on there. He's kind of built in that deep threat role, but he's also one of the more physical guys that's going to be on that team. So he can do a little bit of everything there, like where Cooper Kupp's, kind of that route running specialist. Van Jefferson's going to stretch the field. Puka can do a little bit of everything in between there. So if he's able to get on the field, I think that he's a guy that can have some sneaky value in like the 16, 20-team leagues, but nothing shallower than that. I mean, Ben Skronik, I think he had like over 600 snaps last year and did nothing with it. Tutu Atwell, I mean, I think if you redrafted today, there's no way he goes in the second round. I mean, that was one of the weirder picks in that regime's history of drafting. So yeah, I think Puka Nakua is the guy that I'm paying attention to, and the rest of these guys I'm not really too interested in.
Yeah, I mean, Tutu Atwell is probably the reason that you got the GM Les Snead saying "fuck picks." So let's move on to the tight ends here.
Yeah.
And let's talk about Tyler Higbee and his career season he had last year. But everyone else was hurt. All right. I mean, and he's got a, competition here. They traded Jalen Ramsey and they got Hunter Long back in return from the Dolphins. You got Bryson Hopkins, who played a little bit last year. I mean, knowing all of that, I mean, do you think he can, Tyler Higbee can do anything similar to what he did last year?
I mean, last year, he had 72 catches, 620 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Could he come close to that? Yeah. I'm not too worried about them trading for Hunter Long, and then you got Bryson Hopkins there too. I mean, he's the only guy here that's going to be fantasy relevant. And he does play a position that there's not a lot of good options in. So I think that as long as he's healthy, especially the weeks that Stafford's there, you're going to have to start him just because there's probably not 12 to 14 other guys that are better than him on a weekly basis when everybody's healthy in that offense. Sean McVay plays there. But that being said, if you're able to trade, pivot off, and get someone that's a little bit younger, maybe that hasn't quite broken out all the way, that's a trade I'm definitely making this year.
Fair enough. All right, and I pretty much agree with you. But that pretty much wraps up our Los Angeles Rams preview. I want to thank all you guys for watching. If you guys are watching, make sure you check out our other team previews here. This is our last division, so we do have 28 other videos posted up in that playlist that you guys can go check out. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really appreciate it. And, just make sure if you want, that key critical information and that one-on-one, you subscribe to our fantasy6pack.net/plans, because that's where you're going to get the best advice, in my opinion. But for Jordan, I'm Mike. Have a great night, guys, and we'll talk to you later.
See you.